For the last 9 months, the U.S. military has drilled, tested, and analyzed the soil and water at this military base in South Korea for traces of Agent Orange. The cost of this investigation, roughly $4 million. The results? This 58-page report in Korean. Once we had the findings painstakingly translated, we matched it with the military's version, then took it to 3 independent environmental experts, and all 3 came to the same conclusion.
There's clearly a public health risk there.
Sure, it's harmful.
No one should be drinking this water.
The military would have you believe otherwise, declaring publicly Agent Orange did not show up in their investigation.
They weren't entirely truthful. Let's just be honest, okay? Because the testing says what it says. They found it. They found what would be reasonably considered to be a cooled off version of time has worn it down, but it's still there.
Environmental expert Steve Brittle says that what was found is the most toxic component of Agent Orange, and it turned up in samples in 2 places. The military argues that the hotspots do not mean the deadly toxin was ever on the base.
For it to get there, it would probably have to come from the Agent Orange.
2378 TCDD is a marker left behind when Agent Orange decomposes, a telltale fingerprint of sorts. And while it can also come from burning materials, Brittle says that's likely not the case here, because it wouldn't have seeped so deeply into the ground. And that's not all. A second major ingredient of Agent Orange, 2,4,5-T, was also discovered on the base.
You found the contaminant, you found half of the chemical constituents of the Agent Orange.
But perhaps more alarming is the discovery of the chemicals the military was not looking for.
You've got trichloroethylene, perchloroethylene in groundwater.
TCE and PCE are just 2 of the toxic chemicals that turned up in the groundwater wells on and off the base. The levels are so high they exceeded both the EPA and the World Health Organization drinking water standards.
The groundwater beneath the base in areas, yes, is contaminated.
When we initially began pressing the military for answers months ago, we got a hold of documents showing the military buried more than 100 different toxic chemicals, pesticides, and herbicides on the base in 1978, and then dug them up a year later. Yet this report shows many of those chemicals are still present in the soil and in the water, nearly 3 decades later.
The more contaminants you have, the worse the water has got to be for public health.
Particularly worrisome, large amounts of the pesticide dieldrin were found on the basin in the drinking water wells. Dieldrin was banned internationally because of the danger it poses to humans. And last July, during our visit to South Korea, we found several children sick with leukemia living near the U.S. base.
I would say it's a 99% likelihood that their leukemias were caused by these chemicals.
I would be concerned for the people that were drinking water from those wells.
ASU professor and water expert Dr. Peter Fox says even today, the harm is still being done.
They should immediately shut those wells off, find different sources of water until they can resolve how to clean it up.
The military claims their investigation is over, but these experts say not by a long shot.
For them to not bring up the fact that they need to do a decontamination of the site, it's kind of appalling, because it's very clear that it exceeded the federal standards.